Hi, I'm Mark Fournier. Do you ever feel overwhelmed? And if so, is it the kind that comes and goes, or that continuous feeling of overwhelm? Either way, in today's episode, Overcoming Overwhelm, you're going to learn how to do just that. How to overcome the state of overwhelm. And we're going to begin by making sure that we can all agree on what exactly overwhelm is and why it's such a serious problem. For most people, it's simply a feeling, but it's a powerful one. It's the sense that no matter what you do, it won't be enough. It's like that feeling you get from trying to meet an impossible deadline, or dealing with too many problems at one time, or having others expect too much of you, or expecting too much of yourself. Regardless of what causes your specific sense of overwhelm, overwhelm affects us all in pretty much the same way. It's also caused by nearly the exact same thing for all of us. And that's great news, because if overwhelm is being caused by the same thing for all of us, yet some of us rarely ever become overwhelmed, then all we need to do is find out what they do differently from the rest of us, especially those of us who are easily overwhelmed or frequently overwhelmed. But first, let's make sure you're aware of the enormous negative impact that being overwhelmed can have on your life. And we want to do that because you want to be fully motivated to master the steps necessary to stop it from happening. So, aside from feeling terrible, being overwhelmed hurts us in many ways, physically and otherwise. It causes us to produce negative stress hormones that damage our bodies. It can ultimately lead to cancer and heart disease, of course, to sleep loss and premature aging. It negatively impacts our mental and emotional state, which can lead to frustration, anger, apathy, fear, and to various forms of mental illness, such as chronic anxiety and depression. Any of these can damage and even destroy relationships. They can cost us our jobs, even our lives. And at the very least, they bring out the worst in us. Ironically, at the one time when we are in greatest need for our mental, emotional, and physical prowess is when we begin to shut down. We are the least creative, resilient, and resourceful, or brilliant, when we're in an overwhelm-induced state of panic or fear. So the secret to being our best in any situation must include avoiding overwhelm. And with that said, let's get started. The first thing you need to know is that overwhelm has a great deal in common with fear. So if you go back and watch the podcast we did on Beyond Fear, you'll find that the same things that you do to overcome fear can help you overcome overwhelm, including staying in the moment and avoiding the tendency to catastrophize. But the single most effective thing that you can do is this. Remember how to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
That still only counts as one!
Overwhelm is almost always caused by looking at too many things at once. Yes, you do need to step back and look at the whole picture to get your bearings. But once you see the picture, you need to release it and begin to focus. And what do you focus on? Simple. That one single most important thing that you can do right now. You can't save the whole world at once. So task number one is prioritize. You got to figure out that one thing on your overwhelming list is the single most important one of all. And then what's the next one after that and the next after that? And you don't even have to figure out your entire list of priorities at once. Even that can be overwhelming. You only need to know just the next few steps, just enough to get started. And then jump in and get busy. When you've done all that you can with that one thing, then you move on to the next and the next. And you keep doing this until you've run out of priorities. And at that point, you figure out the next set of priorities and so on. The key here is to let everything go but the one thing that you're doing now. The next step requires letting go of the idea that it needs to be perfect or nearly so. The desire to create perfection is the second cause of overwhelm, right after looking at too many things at one time. Shooting for perfection sets us up for overwhelm because perfection isn't possible. Those who rarely ever experience overwhelm aren't nihilists. They care about things just as much as the rest of us. It's just that they know when it's time to say, that's good enough. It's time to move on. Believe me, I've got overwhelm challenges of my own, and that's how I learned to conquer them, because I've got OCD. And so I so badly want everything I do to be absolutely perfect. But if I gave in to that one little issue, neither this video nor the ones I've done before or those to come after would ever have been completed. Because like you, I've got about 100 other things going on at any given time. And there's no way that I've got the resources to do all of them perfectly, much less this video. And there's no way that this video will ever turn out in real life like the one I have envisioned in my mind. Woody Allen famously said he never ever goes to see the movies that he's produced and directed because nothing he creates in the real world ever comes close to what's in his mind. So what do? I tell myself that I'm not trying to create a masterpiece. I'm trying to create better lives. And the video I'm shooting is good enough to accomplish that. And then I say, okay, let's shoot the next one. And I let it go. So manage expectations, yours and everyone else's, by saying, I'll do the best I can with what I have. And what you have is a given amount of energy, support, time, funding, and the other resources that we've been talking about. Just like the rest of us, there are only so many resources to go around. And when you think about it, doing the best you can with what you have is the most that you can ever ask of anyone, including yourself. So once you begin to focus on just one thing, and you've let go of the need for perfection, you only need to do one more thing. Focus on the possibilities. Those who allow self-doubt to creep in are destined to feel overwhelmed because, let's face it, in the end, overwhelm is little more than the feeling that we're not enough, that we can't do it, that it's more than we can handle. So don't go there. Nothing good will ever come of telling yourself that you're not enough, while everything good will come from the exact opposite. Nothing amazing was ever accomplished by someone who didn't believe they could do it. And this takes us back to our goal-setting podcast, where you learned that the single most important ingredient to creating a successful life, to achieving a success, is belief. And this is because when we fully believe that something is possible, it changes the way we behave, which changes the outcome. And the same thing happens when it comes to things that cause us overwhelm. When we think about our strengths, our past achievements, when we look for proof that what we are doing is possible, when we see that others have done it too, it increases our belief. Our belief then changes what we're capable of. which creates a positive feedback loop, resulting in the elimination of overwhelm. After all, once you break down everything you're doing to this one thing and just do that one thing at a time and focus on that, what's there to be overwhelmed about? I mean, it's just this one little thing. Hell, even I can do this one thing. Besides, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just the best that I can do under the circumstances. And I've done plenty of things like this before, and so have lots of other things. Hell yeah, it's really no big deal. So you go down that route, and then you realize that it really isn't a big deal. And you then finish that one priority, and you move on to the next, and so on and so forth. And next thing you know, you've accomplished what may have seemed impossible had you continued looking at everything all at once, shooting for perfection, and doubting yourself every step of the way. So that's really it. Doing the opposite of this is how you overcome overwhelm. This process will not only help you overcome overwhelm. This is the one greatest of the secrets to achieving the seemingly impossible and living a limitless life. I'm Mark Fournier, the Limitless Coach. Create a great moment